Rising COVID cases in Manitoba. Manitoba grapples with COVID-19 surge, asks Ottawa for help. Winnipeg mayor says he's disappointed in province's handling of COVID-19. Third wave golf and new public health orders. Canada post #right here right now. Campaign Manitoba announces new COVID-19 restrictions ahead of May long weekend. Respect your right to choose. Manitoba's Brian Pallister says of those who don't get vaccinated. Manitoba seeing transmission in private residences from social. GATHERINGS COVID-19 vaccine questions with Dr. Joss Reimer. Manitoba will begin giving second doses of COVID-19 vaccines for those with specific health conditions on Friday. Fact or fiction? How do you spot an adverse reaction following COVID-19 vaccine? Experts explain concerns over Ontario's COVID-19 triage protocol. How to keep thieves from targeting your bike. Trudeau responds to Auditor General's report on challenges at the CBSA wildfire preparedness. Roussan attributes delay in Manitoba's COVID-19 third wave to travel restrictions. Load error. The minister also acknowledged the role of the government in which we all serve. Blair's remarks come almost a week after the remains of more than 200 children were discovered buried on the grounds of a former residential school in British Columbia. The remains were found using ground-penetrating radar. Blair expressed his sincere and deepest sympathies, saying that the tragic legacy of residential schools and the Government of Canada's role could not be illustrated more profoundly than through the discovery of the children's graves. Blair said over the past 2 years, including today, he has spent considerable time discussing the RCMP's work towards reconciliation with the Forces Commissioner Brenda Lucki, and the RCMP and the Commissioner have assured me that the RCMP will offer its full support as we seek to learn more about the events in Kamloops and to provide assistance as required in communities right across Canada, he said. Global News sent a request for comment to the RCMP to determine what this support will look like, but did not immediately hear back. Blair said as Canada mourns with the Temloops Tay Sequipemc First Nation and all Indigenous people, it's very clear that we must continue to strive to improve upon the services provided to Indigenous people and communities across Canada. In 2011, the RCMP published a report titled The Role of the Canadian Mounted Police During the Indian Residential School System. The report found RCMP officers assisted with the removal, often by force, of Indigenous children from their homes and transported them to the residential schools. Members of the force also acted as truant officers, who searched for, apprehended and returned children to the residential schools. They also fined parents whose children did not go to the schools. The authors of the report said they interviewed several residential school survivors in their research. They said many claimed they learned to fear the RCMP, and did not want to contact the police. In 2004, then RCMP Commissioner Giuliano Zaccardelli formally apologized to Indigenous peoples for the RCMP's involvement in the residential school system. To those of you who suffered tragedies at residential schools, we are very sorry for your experience, he said. Canadians can never forget what happened and they never should. I, as Commissioner of the RCMP, am truly sorry for what role we played in the residential school system and the abuse that took place in that system, he continued. 10 years later, in March of 2014, RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson offered his apology. I am deeply sorry for what has happened to you and the part my organization played in it, he said. Regretfully, we can't change the past. We can, however, move forward together and try to heal, he said. The RCMP has learned from the past and is committed to building strong, healthy and safe Aboriginal communities across this country. Royal Military College failed to respond to sexual misconduct. Former training head advice on mixing vaccine shots based on goal of not wanting vaccine doses to go to waste. NACI gives green light to mix and match COVID-19 vaccines. B.1.617.2 COVID-19 variant now dominant in United Kingdom. Trudeau calls Air Canada aid package a good and fair deal. Calls grow to find all children lost at residential schools. Trudeau vows action following discovery of 215 bodies at former residential school site. Delivering COVID-19 vaccines in family practices is key to reaching hesitant patients. Calgary doctor answering your questions about COVID-19 vaccines. O'Toole calls on Trudeau to take immediate action following discovery of mass grave at BC residential school. Calls for a culturally appropriate framework to investigate the Kamloops site and mass graves. Are going to fight for justice for you. Jagmeet Singh on residential school burial sites. Trudeau vows concrete action after BC residential School grave discovery experts answer your COVID-19 questions. Part 13 Residential school survivors forced to relive trauma after discovery of suspected mass grave in BC. BC residential school survivor shares his story in the days since the remains of the 215 children were discovered in Kamloops. First Nations leaders and advocates have warned that this is only the beginning, and that there are many missing children left to be found. In an interview with Global News on Monday, Assembly of First Nations National Chief Perry Bellegarde said the federal government must act swiftly to determine if there are other burial sites out there. There was over 130 residential schools in Canada, and it happened at every school. Bellegarde said the discovery of the unmarked burial sites has made the truth undeniable. You've got to get the sonar technology that's required to do the proper investigations and research and get this done sooner than later, because families need to know. Families need that healing time, Bellegarde said. According to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission (TRC), a body mandated with researching and telling Canadians about the truth of the residential school system, at least 150,000 First Nations, Inuit and Métis children passed through the residential school system in Canada. After a years-long investigation, the TRC said it estimates there were at least 3,200 deaths at residential schools across the country. However, in a report, the TRC said due to limitations in the records, it is probable that there are many student deaths that have not been recorded in the register because the record of the death has not yet been located. Speaking during a take-note debate Tuesday evening, NDP MP Leah Garzon called for all residential school sites to be blocked off immediately as active crime scenes so that Indigenous nations, survivors and families can decide how they want to proceed in their search for their loved ones. Opposition parties have also called on the federal Liberal government to move swiftly to enact specific recommendations laid out by the TRC in 2015 with regards to missing children and burial information.